Washington Journal continues.
Texas Democrat Al Green was the first member of Congress to call for President Trump's impeachment back in 2017. He joins us now as the House prepares to impeach President Trump for a second time. And Congressman, first, how are you and where were you a week ago today during that attack on Capitol Hill?
Well, thank you very much. If I may just do this quickly, I want to thank C-SPAN for the way it has presented the news in an unbiased way over these years as it relates to this impeachment. And I'd also like to applaud the 110 people, I was among them, but the 110 people who were actually there to lay the foundation for impeachment. These persons took a lot of grief. There was so much happening in their lives that I'm sure they would like to recount and the world would know about it. But there was a lot going on initially that wasn't recorded. And I just think that they should be appreciated. And I really do want to commend those who were there at the genesis. With reference to your question, I was in my office, and but prior to coming into the actual office, I had a 2:15 appointment to be over on the Capitol. And on my way there, I was approached by an officer who said that we have to shelter in place. And the officer really meant shelter right now in place because of what was happening. And the officer had some degree of consternation in his demeanor. So I said, I've got to go into my office to be with my staff. So I came to my office and I was with my staff. We had to put our phones on silent. We had to be quiet, and we had to concern ourselves with letting people know that we were actually in the office. That was the protocol that we were asked to follow, and we followed that protocol. But as we were looking at all of this develop on the screen, seeing what I would call live and in living color insurrection. You don't get to see an insurrection in this country the way we saw it on the screen. And we saw it, and it was most revealing, but it was also something that did cause a good deal of concern.
Congressman Al Green with us for about the next 20 minutes, so go ahead and start calling in now if you want to chat with him. Democrats 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, Independents 202-748-8002. Congressman, as folks are calling in, as we noted, you have supported impeachment going back to the spring of 2017, but what does a second impeachment accomplish with a week to go in the Trump presidency?
There's a lot of irony in what's happening now, because back in December of 2019, I addressed this very question and indicated then that the president could be impeached a second time. I think it's important that we do it this time because we have a president that I have concluded and stated is unfit. We had articles of impeachment because he was unfit at the time, in my opinion. But also because he currently has sought to incite an insurrection. That's pretty serious business. This is the United States of America. When a president, the person who is there to protect and defend the Constitution, to provide liberty and justice for all, when he incites people to march to the Capitol, and when they get there, they take it upon themselves to assault officers, to scale the walls, to do all sorts of dastardly things, to erect a gallows with a noose, to have on shirts indicative of persons who support Nazism, support anti-Semitism, to just do some of the things that were done inside. One of the things that has offended me greatly, and I'm not sure why, but to spread fecal matter, that just says something to me about that person. I'm not going to say everybody was involved with that, but to do this in the capital of the United States of America on television is something that we cannot allowed to go unchallenged. And there must be some means by which we can deter future persons from doing this. My constituents, more than one, my constituents have come to me in fear. And here's why they're in fear. They believe that if the Capitol can be assaulted, and these are people of color, they believe that something ugly could happen to them. People are afraid, not just here in Washington, D.C. I don't want this to be about the members who are trying to protect themselves. This is about protecting people who will never come to Washington, D.C. if this kind of thing gets out of hand. And there are people who remember some of the other things that have happened in history, like Rosewood and Black Wall Street. So I'm concerned about them. And I hope that the impeachment will be successful, not because I want to celebrate the impeachment of the president, but because I love my country. I love my country. All of this is about love for country, and it's about doing what we have to do, even sometimes when you don't get the level of support that you think you should get, but you know that you've got to do the right thing. And the right thing right now is to support this article of impeachment. I filed an article as well, and it deals with the hate that the president has engendered. What happened out there on January 6th was that a result of the hate that the president has been sort of stirring up over some time with some of the things that have been said and done about what happened in Charlottesville. Jews will not replace us when those persons were marching there. About the thing that happened when he was in the White House and he was talking to senators and called certain countries S-hole countries. About how he has treated women and demeaned them publicly and members of Congress, separating babies from families and not a way to return them and reconnect them. He has sown the seeds of hate across the country. And I regret even having to say it, but this is the day of reckoning. And the president, I believe, should be impeached. And I believe that he should not be allowed to hold office again because he has indicated to us that he's a recidivist. He's a chronic contributor to the ills that we abhor in society.
Well, Congressman,
he should not hold public office again.
I know time with you is short. Want to give you a chance to chat with some of our callers. There's plenty for you already. We'll start with one of your fellow Texans. This is Lisa, Republican. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Representative Green.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about QAnon. Why have the Republicans not renounced QAnon? I mean, I got from the Republican Party of Texas, I got a 2021 sustaining membership appeal letter, and on the back of it, it says, "We are the storm." I think this goes a lot deeper than we're being told. It looks to me from the Washington Post article as if the lack of security at the Capitol was an inside job. People were, they were told that the National Guard was prepped, and they weren't. And it's for example, Lindsey Graham. I mean, I don't trust anybody anymore. Lindsey Graham said that he was done with, he'd had enough, and he flew down to Texas with him yesterday. So,
Congressman Green.
Yes, well, thank you for your question. This is a time of great uncertainty, and I think you are evidence of what I was trying to communicate earlier about people being very concerned, and many of them are very fearful, because if it can happen at the Capitol, only God knows where else it may happen. With reference to QAnon, this is something that is irrational, and it is difficult to explain the irrational. What you can do is just as a matter of fact, say to people what it is. It's irrational. But I'm a firm believer in something that Carlyle has said. and it is that no lie can live forever. And William Cullen Bryant reminds us that truth crushed to earth shall rise again. And Dr. King, although the arc of the moral universe is long, it bends toward justice. So we have to put the arc of the moral universe toward justice. And we have to be truthful. And I believe that in the end, truth will win. That's what we have to do. But it can be difficult when you're in the midst of trying to accomplish your aim to make sure that truth prevails.
Rain, Louisiana, this is Chase, Independent. Good morning.
Hi, how you guys doing? A couple of things on my mind today, this morning. I wanted to acknowledge that the children being separated at the border was only in the case where there was no evidence of the children being the children of the people bringing them across the border, effectively, reducing child trafficking. And another thing on my mind was the lack of confidence in the vote this year. Yeah.
Congressman Green, his second point, I think he said, was the lack of confidence in the vote.
Oh, thank you. I believe that we have vetted this election quite thoroughly. This may be the most vetted election in the history of the United States. It has gone through not only the various states, but also for vetting, but also the courts have been involved in it. And there has not been evidence of widespread voter fraud. I'll be very candid with you. I don't think we'll ever have a perfect election. I really do not. Things happen. People are involved and mistakes are made. Things will happen. Without intentionality, things will happen. There may be some things that will occur that some one or two or some few people may do, but there won't be a perfect election. And if we hone in on the mistakes that are made, and there will be mistakes made, we can call any election a bad election because of some of the things that human beings can do without intentionality. Mistakes can be made. And those that do it with intentionality, we should capture them and they should be prosecuted for it. But I believe it was a good election. I think that President-elect Biden is the person who won the actual election, and Vice President-elect Harris won, and that on January 20th, they will be installed in office. But if I may just say this quickly, I regret greatly that the president has declined to be in attendance. This sends another signal. I'm not sure exactly what the message is intended to be, but I can tell you that there are many who perceive this as his disapproval, continued disapproval and continued disbelief in the process. The president is continuing to do irreparable harm. He has to be impeached and he should never hold public office again. I beg Mr. McConnell, do what you can to assemble a trial in the Senate so that we can bring back the normalcy that this country has enjoyed with reference to the transfer of power. That's got to take place, and it can only take place, in my opinion, if there's a trial in the Senate. The impeachment will only indict. The trial in the Senate is the thing that will help us to restore the confidence in our country. And those who say that if you do this, it's going to rip the country apart, listen, you cannot allow injustice to prevent you from doing that which is just. Justice has to prevail over injustice, and you can't just allow injustice to run rampant.
On the Biden administration, are you concerned about a Senate trial undercutting the early days of the Biden administration, efforts to pass legislation that Joe Biden has promised to do, to confirm his nominees and get them in a position where they can enact his policies?
Well, many people have said we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but this is more important than walking and chewing gum. I believe that there is a way to accomplish this. Impeachment, the indictment, doesn't mean that the case goes to trial immediately. We've had trials in our country wherein the persons have been indicted for years, and finally they go to trial. In Texas, we have such a case right now with a person who holds public office. So the point is, there doesn't have to be something that starts on day one, but if we got it out of the way, I think it would be beneficial if we took care of it quickly. But I don't think that we can get around doing that which is just. And I would prefer that it be done before the trial start, before Mr. Biden takes the presidency, and we should leave him out of it. I think he has work to do. I think this is the business of the House and the Senate. The president should continue with his work, and we should support the legislation and or oppose it as he presents it.
To Dolores in Collierville, Tennessee, Democrat, you're next. You're on with Congressman Green.
Good morning to both of you. I have some quick comments, and I won't take long, Representative Green. It all first started when Trump got up there, knew about this virus, and wouldn't tell us the truth. Trump lied and people died. He studied lying. He lied about this election was wrong. They went over and over, Republicans, even up to the Senate and up in the Congress. Everybody knew what this man was doing. He hates to lose, but he don't care about human lives. We all saw what happened up there with the people, and the officer up there getting pinned up there, crying out loud. And then we found out they destroyed the building. Excuse me, I'm gonna say it in a nice way. This was poured with feces, food, water, and everything else. What decent human being would do something like that?
I am as appalled as you are, and I think that that's why we are here today, a day that will, of course, live in infamy, not a day for us to celebrate. This is not a time for us to be proud that somehow the president is leaving office. It's something that we should regret, but something that we know we have to do. There are times in life when that which must be done is not the thing that you would want to have done, but the thing that you must do. We must do this for posterity, for those who are unborn, so that we can protect them and let other would-be Trumps know what their fate can be if they should stoop to such dastardly things as have been done.
To Richard in St. Albans, West Virginia, line for Republicans. You're next. Good morning.
Good morning. I missed the introduction to this segment with Congressman Green, so I just have to say that if it was not mentioned that Congressman Green was calling for Trump's impeachment no sooner than he took office, very early in his term, then you're fraudulently presenting him as some kind of objective judge of whether or not Trump should be impeached. I don't know whether Trump should be impeached or not. I don't know if his behavior rise to that level, but unless they have a real hearing, a Senate hearing where the public can see the evidence, which was not the case the last time they tried to impeach him, then the whole thing is fraudulent. And not surprisingly, and let me just say quickly, because I know as a typical Democrat, probably somebody is going to accuse me of being a racist, I resent on the behalf of my two black grandchildren that the race card is being played and fomented, not just by this congressman, but by Biden and Harris. The first thing they went to is a race card. They're going to make it more difficult for my grandchildren to grow up in a peaceful world, and I resent that.
Well, thank you for your call, sir. And I do not perceive you to be a racist. I think people are entitled to their opinions. And my hope is that your grandchildren will grow up in a world where we won't have to suffer the kind of indignations and humiliations that this president has caused to be visited upon certain members of society. I think that for all of the persons who hold your position, this was what I would just simply say to you. There are some people who see life from a different perch, and they are as fearful and concerned about their families as you are. And the truth is, those people and you have much more in common than you think. I believe that at some point, on the infinite continuum that we call time, there will be a uniting of people from the various classes, as they are called, who are suffering. And when the suffering ultimately unite, I think this country is going to be a better place, because that means that we'll pay more attention to those who are suffering. So my best wishes to you and your family, sir. If I have given you reason to think that I think you're racist, you have my apologies, because I was wrong to do that. I wouldn't want people to just think that persons who supported Mr. Trump in general are racist. I don't believe that.
Time for maybe one more call for you, sir. I know you have to get to work in about just a couple minutes here. Connor, Reston, Virginia, Independent. Go ahead. Thanks for waiting.
Yes, Reverend Green, I appreciate everything you've done for civil rights. I want to ask you, what makes the Capitol siege different than the Greensboro sit-ins, than the 504 sit-ins, than Stonewall? What would you say to those who tried to draw the comparison between what happened on January 6th to those civil rights movements? Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I just want to correct the record. I'm not a reverend. I appreciate it, but my grandfather was. I'm the grandson of a preacher, but I'm not a reverend. And many people think so because I wear this pin that says God is good all the time. I'm just a believer, still a sinner, but a believer. How does this differ from other circumstances where people were, let's just say, protesting? Here is how it differs. The people at Stonewall were protesting injustice being perpetrated upon them. This circumstance emanates from a president who has fanned the flames of confusion. He's fanned the flames of confusion with hate. And he used incisive language to cause them to go to the Capitol and to decide, for whatever reasons, that they were going to take over the building. At Stonewall, people were not trying to take over a federal facility. The people at Stonewall were really responding in a defensive fashion. This was an offensive action to take over a building, the Capitol of the United States of America, scaling walls, pushing against an officer who was trapped and pleading. And then there was a heave, ho, heave, ho. This was an insurrection. It was something that we have not seen before and is not in any way comparable to what happened at Stonewall. Not in any way comparable to what happened at the March on Washington when Dr. King came and gave the great I Have a Dream speech. Not in any way comparable to what John Lewis did when he was crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965 on Bloody Sunday. This is antithetical to the movements that I have just referenced that were there for justice for all. This was about a few, meaning a lot of people, but a few who were gathered and decided that they were going to do something to interrupt the peaceful transition of power. Those other circumstances were not about that, and about really trying to take a presidency from people who have been legitimized and advertised as the persons who won the election. I thank you for allowing me to say those words, because I think that C-SPAN is a place where voices can be heard that may not be heard in other places. God bless you, and I thank you.
And we thank you for your time today on a very busy day. Congressman Al Green, Democrat from Texas.